dear students, myself Ranke, and I welcome you all to the MCGM's virtual classroom.
We are going to start with the subject history, and in history we have textbook of history and political science. Here on the screen, as you can see, the front and the back cover of our textbook, and by observing the pictures on the cover pages of this book, you can understand or you can get an idea about what we are going to study in this textbook. Here now the content. In applied history, which is heading of our history textbook, we have to study 9 chapters, and in political science we have to study 5 chapters. So one by one we'll see. In the history we have historiography, that is development in the West, and then the historiography, Indian tradition. Third chapter, applied history. Then the next one, history of Indian arts. So in this topic we'll learn about the history of different Indian arts. Then the next one, next to applied history, we have to talk about mass media and history. Then sixth one, entertainment and history. Then sports and history. By the heading you can get what exactly we have to study or learn in these topics. That is, if the topic is sports and history, the thing is very clear. We are going to talk about the history of sports in that particular topic. Then tourism and history, and the last one in history, that is heritage management. Now if we talk about political science, in the political science, first chapter, working of the constitution, then the electoral process, political parties, social and political movements, and challenges faced by Indian democracy. And now today we'll be learning the first topic of the history, that is historiography, development in the West. Now we have to study this topic into 2 parts, that is first lesson, historiography, development in the West, and the second one, historiography, Indian tradition. So the first one is historiography, development in the West, and in this topic we'll be learning the points like tradition of historiography, modern historiography, development of scientific perspective in Europe, and historiography and the notable scholars. Now the first thing, can we study history like physical and natural sciences? For example, in the physical and natural sciences, the empirical method, that is laboratory method of experiments and observation, is used to verify the available knowledge. If we are studying about the science, देन उसकी बहुत सारी पढ़ाई जो है वो लैबोरेटरी में होती है बाय डूइंग एक्सपेरिमेंट्स या फिर ऑब्जर्वेशन. सो कैन वी यूज दिस मेथड इन हिस्ट्री ऑल्सो? एंड हियर इज द आंसर. In historical research, it may not possible to use the method of laboratory experiments and observation. Then which method we are going to use to study history? And for this, The question is how to study history then. Historical research, writing and studies are carried out with an objective of understanding the chronology of the past events and their interconnections, and this is a continuous process. Now the same question again, how to study history then if we are not using the laboratory method of experiments and observations? Then we need an expert. We need an expert. Expert of what? Who knows the language and script of historical documents. The experts can examine the authenticity of the document, and the document is further scrutinized by a historian. So three things are there basically to study history. The first thing, we need an expert. और वो expert कैसा होना चाहिए? उसे हर एक लैंग्वेज के बारे में पता होना चाहिए, एटलीस्ट द मटेरियल अबाउट विच ही इज स्टडिंग उसके बारे में पूरी जानकारी होनी चाहिए. देन दैट एक्सपर्ट कैन एग्जामाइन, वो उस पर बहुत सारे रिसर्च करेगा. रिसर्च और एग्जामाइन द ऑथेंटिसिटी ऑफ द डॉक्यूमेंट, इज दैट रिलायबल और ऑथेंटिक, वो ऑथेंटिक है या नहीं. एंड देन द डॉक्यूमेंट इज फर्दर स्क्रूटिनाइज्ड. सो ऑल दीज methods or the processes are included in the study of history. Methods of various disciplines are useful in historical research, and which includes the study of human history and prehistory through the excavation of sites and the analysis of artifacts and other physical remains. About this you people already learnt in the lower standards history, like in the topic sources of history. उसमें हमने पढ़ा है कि अलग अलग sources का use करके किस तरह से historical knowledge लिया जाता है और फिर उससे history के बारे में हमें पता चलता है, उस पर फिर research papers बनते हैं और historical knowledge gain किया जाता है. Here you can see. Then the next one, here you can see next to that is archival science. Here archival science or archival studies is the study and theory of building and curating archives, which are collection of documents, recordings and data storage devices. By this we get information about the historical period or about the historical things. In this, then the next you can see methods of various disciplines useful in historical research, in that manuscriptology. About this also you people learnt in lower standard that a handwritten book or document is called manuscript, and this particular book written in that particular period. तो उससे क्या होता है कि exact information हमें मिलती है और ये authentic माना जाता है. This means that never has been printed. तो ये उस समय में लिखा हुआ होता है, तो उससे exact information हमें मिलती है. Epigraphy, study of inscriptions. By this also we get information about history. Then the numismatics, study of coins. Again I am repeating the same thing in the lower standards. In the topics sources of history, you people learnt about the coin as a source of history, which gives us information about many things like the king and the kingdom and the social and religious things of that particular period, because there on the coin number of things are there, like name of the king or the period of that particular king, या फिर किसी religious या cultural symbols होते हैं जिससे हमें बहुत सारी चीज़ें पता चलती है. Then the next thing in this genealogy, study of lineage. In this, the series of families that somebody comes from or originates that we study here in this, that is family history. If we talk about Shivaji Maharaj, then the family history of Shivaji Maharaj you people study in this.
The history of Shahaji Raje, Veer Mata Jizabai, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj and Chhatrapati.
Now the next, historical research method. Examining relevant references of the available historical information, collecting, here the first thing, examining relevant references of the available historical information, then collecting historical information, highlighting the processes that lead to historical transition, carrying out comparative analysis. Then the next one, understanding the references regarding time and space of the given historical events, and also various conceptual frameworks used in historical research method. So first thing, examining, then collecting, and then understanding. Next one, formulating relevant questions in view of the historical references. मतलब कोई भी historical documents अगर हमारे पास है, कोई reference है, तो उसे question पूछना, formulating relevant questions, and then to get answers of these questions. Then formulating hypothesis, उसके बारे में कुछ hypothesis लगाना, and then to work on that hypothesis. And the last one, critically examining of various sources of history. So all these are the things or the historical research method: examining, collecting, understanding, formulating, again formulating hypothesis, and then critically examining of various sources of history. Now to understand this easily, or to remind or to revise before exam, by these keywords you can easily understand this. Next point, tradition of historiography. Here now we will discuss about the definition or the concept of historiography, which is the heading of our lesson. We have learned that the historical research method, critically examining the historical sources and writing the historical narrative. So the writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. The writing of critical historical narrative. And a scholar who writes such a narrative is a historian. सिर्फ लिखना नहीं है इसमें, सिर्फ नैरेटिव लिखना नहीं है. इफ़ इट इज़ सिंपल नैरेटिव और इफ़ इट इज़ सिंपली नैरेटिव तो वो लैंग्वेज में चला जाएगा, वो लिटरेचर में चला जाएगा. बट वेन एवर इट इज़ क्रिटिकल हिस्टोरिकल नैरेटिव, देन इट इज़ हिस्टोरियोग्राफी. एंड द पर्सन और द स्कॉलर who writes such a narrative is a historian. Ancient people also felt the need of passing on the stories of the life and value of the ancestors to the next generation, and that's why they used different methods to preserve all their things. Ancient communities all over the world used various means like cave paintings, storytelling, singing songs and ballads for this purpose. The historian cannot include every past events in the narrative, and the inclusion and interpretation of historical events by the historian often depends on the conceptual framework adopted by him, and his style of writing is determined by that conceptual framework. So here already you people learned this in the lower standard about the ancient people, how they preserve their, or we can say how they collected data by using different methods of cave paintings, storytelling, singing songs and ballads. Now the next in this, modern historiography. Its method is based on scientific principles. It begins with the formation of relevant questions, to raise questions and then to go for the answers of these questions. So in modern historiography पहले क्या होता था कि questions raise किए जाते थे, scientific method यूज़ की जा रही है जिसमें questions raise किए जा रहे हैं और फिर उन questions के answers के पीछे scholars जा रहे हैं. And these questions are anthropocentric. Here is the word anthropocentric, which means that these questions are about the deeds of the members of ancient human societies of a particular period. History does not suggest any interrelation between the divine and human deeds. So in modern historiography, 4 main characters and the third one is here. Answers to these questions are supported by reliable evidences. Very important thing. Authentic sources होने चाहिए, reliable evidence होने चाहिए. ऐसे ही हवा में बात नहीं की जाती है when we are talking about history or when we are talking about historical period. And that is what is very important in history, that the sources or the evidences should be reliable and authentic. History presents a graph of mankind's journey with the help of past human deeds, and that you people studied in the 5th standards EVS. That is how we came to be. Or about the Stone Age, you people studied in the lower standards history. So in history, what we are studying? Mankind's journey. So all these are the 4 steps or the main characteristics of modern historiography. History is originally a Greek term. It is said that the modern historiography with above characteristics just now about which we discussed has its roots in the ancient Greek historical writings. So history is originally a Greek term, and Herodotus, the Greek historian of the 5th century BCE, used it first for his book entitled the Histories. And now the next, development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography. So till, by the points we'll study this, till the 18th century CE, Europe had achieved a remarkable progress in the field of philosophy and science. Scholars by then had come to believe in the possibility of studying the social and historical truths. But before that, remarkable progress in the field of philosophy and science, not in the field of social and historical study. Now, the philosophical discussions focused more and more on the objectivity in the history and historiography. So prior to the 18th century, all European universities were interested only in the philosophical discourse revolving around divine phenomenon. But then after, scenario began to change, and in 1737 CE, the Göttingen University was founded in Germany, and the journey of history started here. This university, for the first time, which university? The Göttingen University, for the first time, had an independent department of history and later other German universities also became centers of historical studies. So it was started in 1737. And now we'll talk about the notable scholars who contributed a lot in the field of history. The contributions of many scholars are important in the development of historiography. So we are just going to have a look at the contributions of the few notable scholars, and in these the first name is of Rene Descartes. Here you can see the pictures or the images of Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes was the foremost among scholars who insisted on verifying the reliability of historical documents by critically examining them. Among the rules given by him in his book Discourse on the Method, the following is supposed to have a great impact on the scientific method of research. Never to accept anything for true till all grounds of doubts are excluded. Very simple and important thing about the study of history. किसी भी चीज़ के बारे में तब तक उसे एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना है जब तक सारे ग्राउंड लेवल के डाउट क्लियर ना हो जाए. Then about the Rene Descartes, here you can see never to accept anything for true till all grounds of doubt are excluded. Next one, very famous, you may heard about this, Voltaire. Voltaire, who was opined that along with objective truth and chronology of historical events, considering social traditions, trade, economy, agriculture, etc., was also equally important in historiography. Not only truth, but ये सारी चीज़ें जो है which revolves around the common man, जैसे कि एग्रीकल्चर है, इकोनॉमी है, सोशल ट्रेडिशंस है, ट्रेड है, इन सारी चीज़ों से भी हिस्ट्री पता चलती है. एंड वाइल राइटिंग हिस्ट्री उसमें ये सारी चीज़ें भी आनी चाहिए. इट गिव राइज टू द थॉट. व्हाट इट गेव राइज? इट गेव राइज टू द थॉट दैट अंडरस्टैंडिंग all aspects of human life is important for history writing, and thus it is said that Voltaire was the founder of modern historiography. Keep in mind this. Who was the founder of modern historiography? Voltaire. क्योंकि उसने कॉमन मैन को और कॉमन मैन की लाइफ में रिलेटेड जो भी पॉइंट्स है उन पॉइंट्स को हिस्ट्री में स्थान दिया. दैट इज वाई ही वॉज द फाउंडर ऑफ मॉडर्न historiography. Then the next one in this, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. And Hegel was a German philosopher. He insisted that the historical reality should be presented in a logical manner. To him, the timeline of historical events was indicative of progress. And the collection of his lectures and articles is published in a book entitled Encyclopedia of Philosophical Science. His book Reason in History is well known. Then the next notable scholar, Leopold von Ranke. Historiography of the 19th century was greatly influenced by the thoughts of Leopold von Ranke of Berlin University. He spoke about the critical method of historical research. Now here also same thing you have to do. हर एक नोटेबल स्कॉलर और उसके की पॉइंट्स अगर आप याद रखेंगे तो उनके बारे में आप लिख सकते हो, इजीली याद कर सकते हो, या फिर एग्जाम में कोई क्वेश्चन आता है बेस्ड ऑन दिस तो उसे लिखना और याद करना इजी हो जाता है कीवर्ड्स के साथ. जैसे अब यहाँ पर लियोपोल्ड ऑन रैंके है, देन ही वाज द नोटेबल स्कॉलर of the 19th century and of Berlin University. He spoke about the critical method of historical research. He put emphasis on the utmost importance of information gathered through original documents. Again, the important thing. Whenever we are talking about the history, evidences, proof which are very important, and these proofs or evidences or sources should be authentic. और यहाँ पर लियोपोल्ड ओन रैंके और नेक्स्ट बात कर रहा है कि ओरिजिनल डॉक्यूमेंट्स होने चाहिए. He also stated that all types of documents associated with a historical event need to be examined with greatest care. The theory and practice of history and the secret of world history, his famous books. Now in this, the next one, Karl Marx, again very famous, and the person about whom you may heard, Karl Marx. In the latter half of the 19th century, a new school of thought arose, keeping in view the new thesis formulated by Karl Marx. According to the Karl Marx, history was not about abstract ideas, it was about living people. हिस्ट्री में जो लिविंग पीपल या फिर कॉमन लोग हैं उनके बारे में चीज़ें होनी चाहिए. इट इज़ नॉट ओनली द थिंग in which we talk about abstract ideas. According to Marx, human history is the history of class struggle. जैसे अमीर और गरीब, ये दो क्लास हुए. As a class that owns the means of production economically, exploits the rest of the classes. So in this Das Kapital, a treatise written by him is the most referred book all over the world, and nowadays also you may heard his name in the news for many reasons. Whenever there is debate or any issue about the equality, then there is the name of Karl Marx. And then next thing, School of Annals. Annals, a journal founded in France in 1929, and here at the onset of the 20th century, a new school of historiography arose in France, which is known as Annal School. Annal School gave a new direction to history writing. It was recognized now that history is not only about the political events, kings, great leaders, and accordingly politics, diplomacy and wars, but also about the climate, local people, agriculture, trade, technology, means of communication, social divisions, and their collective psychology. So the Annal School was started by French historian. And the next thing, feminist. Feminist historiography. For this, the word first of all we have to understand, that is feminism. A person who believed in feminism is the feminist. And what is feminism? The belief that women should have the same rights and opportunities as men is the feminism. So feminist historiography means the restructuring of the society or of the history from the perspective of women. And in this, Simone de Beauvoir played an important role. After 1990, women were portrayed as an independent social class. Now the last notable scholar in this, Michel Foucault. Here, the French historian of the 20th century, Michel Foucault, brought forth a new concept in historiography. He, in his book Archaeology of Knowledge, argued that the prevailing practice of arranging historical events in a chronological order is not right. He called his method the archaeology of knowledge. He subjected the so far unacknowledged areas by historians such as psychological disorders, science of medicine, and then prison administration, etc. to historical analysis. So here now we discussed about the notable scholars and their views towards writing of history. So the scope of historiography kept continuously expanding. Writing of histories of various subjects like literature, architecture, sculpture, drawing and painting, music, dance, drama, films and television, etc. came into practice. And here also in 10th standards history, we are also going to study about the history of Indian arts, mass media and history, sports and history, tourism and history, heritage management. So now
Please subscribe the channel and press bell icon to get notifications.
So my dear students, this is all for today. Thank you very much. Stay home, stay safe, take care.